Heyo! It is Thursday, July 26th. It is 6:30 here in beautiful Washington, D.C. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. I know I've kind of been slacking, but I don't really think there's been cards lately worth, really motivating me to do this podcast. But I'll do better, guys. So a lot to talk about today. So we just had UFC Hamburg in Germany. I'm just going to talk about the co-main and main event from that one. Half of the reason is because they were a lot of decisions, not a lot of great, exciting fights worth really covering. The other half is I can't pronounce half of those people's names because they were all European, German, so that's pretty tough. So, going to talk some MMA news, which there's a lot in the headlines. Today was Conor McGregor's hearing, so he got his sentence or, whatever. We'll get into that. And then we're going to talk UFC on Fox. I don't remember what number it is, but it is the rematch of Dustin Poirier and Eddie Alvarez. So the first fight ended in a no contest. Dustin Poirier really dominated 2 rounds, and then it ended from an illegal knee by Eddie Alvarez, ending in a no contest. So I will give you my thoughts, my predictions on that fight, and some of the other fights, man. This whole card is stacked. I swear, if there was a title fight on this, it might be one of the best pay-per-views of the year so far. Some people are upset with the card. I don't really understand how. I think it's a great card, and it's going to have some serious title implications for not only the lightweight division in that fight, the Poirier-Eddie Alvarez fight, but also in the featherweight division with Jeremy Stephens and Jose Aldo, and potentially the women's strawweight division with Tisha Torres and former champ Joanna Jędrzejczyk. So you literally could have, if some guys and girls win or lose, you could have 3 of the people on this fight card fighting for titles in their next fights. So I think that's pretty cool. I think that means a lot. So let's get into UFC Hamburg a little bit. All right, so Glover Teixeira versus my boy Corey Anderson. I say my boy because we are from the same hometown, basically, 5 minutes away, whatever. I always tune in to watch Corey fight. He came in on 3 weeks' notice, and a lot of people were counting Corey Anderson out, and I really don't understand why. Maybe it's because he's ranked number 8 at light heavyweight, and Glover was ranked number 3, I believe. But I really don't think that the number and Corey's record really shows his story, paints the whole picture of his UFC career. So, I picked Corey to win the fight. A lot of people, he was a pretty big underdog. I really should have bet on the fight, to be honest. But I just want to go over this really quick to show you guys why you do not sleep on Corey Anderson, ever. So, 1, he's young. He's 28 years old. Huge future in front of him. So let's get into his career. We'll go to the UFC. So let's go to some of the big names. First loss, big loss, TKO by Jean Vellante. Okay, fine. Then he beats Jan Blachowicz, however you say his name, I'm sorry. Beats him. Beats Fabio Maldonado. Beats Tom Lawler, a tough Tom Lawler, UFC 196. Loses a decision a month and a half later to Shogun, who, it was a split decision, and I don't know who those judges were, but I was watching and I had a clear 2-1. So I don't think he lost that fight, to be honest. But he loses that fight, but I don't count it as a loss. Then he beats Sean O'Connell, the hilarious Sean O'Connell. Then he gets KO'd by Jimmy Manuwa. It sucks to see him get KO'd. It was very early in the fight, but, Jimmy Manuwa has power out of this world. Then gets KO'd a second time by OSP over St. Preux in a fight that it was in the third round, and Corey was winning that fight very convincingly, and OSP was the top 5 guy at the time. So he's got those 2 setbacks. Then he beats Pat Cummins, who's a stud, beats him, and now beats Glover Teixeira. And if you watch the fight, a lot of times Corey just relies on his wrestling, and that's his bread and butter. But he relied on his wrestling a lot in this fight too. But his boxing looks so crisp, so crisp, which I'm not surprised because he's a Mark Henry guy. Mark Henry is one of the best boxing coaches, head coaches in the game. That whole team. You look at who they have: Eddie Alvarez, who's fighting this weekend. Obviously, Frankie Edgar. They had Edson, but Edson just went down to Florida to train at ATT. But, that whole team is stacked, super stacked, full of, and their coaches are great too. And so I'm not surprised, but it was kind of cool to see that come to fruition. So Corey gets it done. So Corey, the number 9, number 8 guy, beats number 3 guy. Now, this is where it gets really weird in the light heavyweight division because it's very muddy. So, obviously, you have the champion, Daniel Cormier, who's a 2-time champ. Now he's fighting at heavyweight. We don't know if he's going to come back down to light heavyweight. Before this weekend, Cormier was kind of saying that, he wouldn't mind going back down to light heavy to fight Shogun. Well, we'll get into how that's not going to work out since Shogun just got knocked out very fast. So let's look at these rankings. So DC champion, Gustafsson, number 1 light heavyweight. Well, he's out because of an injury. Volkan Oezdemir, he's out. Gustafsson and Volkan were supposed to fight, and both of them got injured. Ilir Latifi, he was originally supposed to fight Glover. He's out. Or was he supposed to fight Shogun? I don't remember. I know he was supposed to be in one of those fights. Then Jan, we just talked about him, number 4. I don't know why he can't get a fight right now. Jimmy Manawa, he's been inactive. And now you have Corey Anderson, number 6. So he moves from 9 to 6. And he says, to DC, hey, I won't call you out of respect, but I'd love to fight you for the title. Well, seeing as the top 3 guys are out because of injury, don't know what's going on with Jan. And DC responds, said, all right, let's do it. Look, I love Corey, but let's be honest, and this is just me. DC's my favorite fighter. I think Corey would just get outworked by DC at this point in his career. But DC's got that big Brock fight coming up potentially if he can do the pass the USADA testing. I just think it would be too much too soon for Corey, but he's a stud, man. So good for him. All right, and then now let's talk the main event: Shogun versus Anthony Lionheart Smith. Not a lot to be said about this fight. Shogun is a weird one, former UFC champ, but I really didn't understand people that were giving Shogun a chance. Obviously, he was fighting an unranked Anthony Smith, and Shogun was on a 3-fight winning streak, and Anthony Smith goes up there and knocks him out in the first round in really the opening minute. I'm not surprised. Anthony Smith is a giant at 205. He used to fight at 185, moved up to 205. But I want to get into Anthony Smith. A lot of guys are really jumping on the Anthony Smith train already. Relax a little bit. Has he looked good at 205? Absolutely. But who's he fought? He's fought Rashad Evans, knocked him out in the first round from a knee. But Rashad had already lost 4 of his last 5. Then he beat Shogun, a 36-year-old who has a total dad bod, and a lot of his wins are questionable recently. I just mentioned the Corey Anderson one. So he definitely deserves to be in the top 15, no doubt. I think he's actually ranked number 9 now. But I'm not jumping on that train just yet. So hopefully you guys are with me. If not, tell me why. But I'd really be interested to hear why you guys might disagree. So that's the co-main and the main event of UFC Hamburg. Hamburg or Hamburg? I don't know. Whatever. So now let's talk some current events. There's some huge ones. So I'll start off with the Conor McGregor bus attack. So basically he reached a plea deal to no felonies, no jail time. He's fine. And my boy Eric Allen over at Top Rated MMA, shout out to that guy. Oh, also shout out to Eric and Top Rated MMA because he just released their new hats. I got one day one. Go check him out, man. He has awesome stuff. I'll promote that guy anytime I get a chance. They, he donates a lot of his profits to Higher Heroes USA, and he donates to my guys over at Fightbook MMA, their fighter sponsorship program. So, anyways, got off on a tangent, but I started that because Eric posted this morning. He was just disgusted, so disgusted at the Conor McGregor legal decision that was made. But hey, man, to Eric and everyone else, a lot of people that are upset. Are you surprised? Did you really think they were going to give Conor McGregor some jail time or something like? No, that's ridiculous. If he were a normal person, of course. Is he a normal person? No. Ray Lewis killed a guy. Conor McGregor threw a dolly at a bus and got some glass in Michael Chiesa's eye. I'm not surprised. Neither should you guys be. Irritated because of the situation? Yeah, sure. But don't be surprised. And now, the good thing that comes out of all of this, if you're a Conor hater, is now the only fight really to have is Khabib. And Adi Attar, Conor's manager, said, yeah, it's in the works. We just had to get this behind us, this legal stuff. So if you're a Conor hater, which I actually like McGregor in that fight against Khabib, but many don't for obvious reasons, Khabib's a monster. Well, now that fight's probably going to happen. It's probably going to happen in Vegas in October or MSG in November. Holistically, it's not so bad. Oh, okay, September. We've got Tyron Woodley and Darren Till. Oh my God, this is a weird situation. So let's back up a few months. Tyron Woodley is out for 6 months because of a shoulder injury, I believe it was. So they do an interim title fight between Rafael dos Anjos and Colby Covington, which, if you guys remember, I said this interim fight is so stupid, but I guess it makes sense because of the Colby talking shit about Brazil, Rafael dos Anjos really being the poster boy for Brazil right now. It makes sense to do a title fight. But I said it was so silly. Woodley hasn't been out that long, and he's coming back before the end of the year. He's just got to get over this injury. Well, guess what happens? Now, Colby's got to get surgery, and the UFC wants him to fight only like 4 months later, from July to September. So just a few months. But he's like, no, I can't. I've been active. What do? They take his interim title away. Stop doing these interim title fights. For Christ's sake, it doesn't make any sense. There has to be a really good reason for there to be an interim title fight. And for Tyron Woodley to be out 6 to 8 months, that's not enough. I understand the hype behind the fight. I understand how you want to make that a 5-round fight so you make it a title fight. I get it, UFC, but stop it. You're devaluing your titles. I mean, just how do you crown someone an interim champion and then strip it months later because he wants to fight 2 months after you want him to fight. You're devaluing the whole title system. You are. I get it. Titles look cool. I love looking at seeing belts wrapped around the waist too. It's a big draw. It draws more people. But when you strip people of a title that you just gave them, which hilariously enough, they made the interim because Woodley had to get surgery, and now your interim champion has to get surgery, and then you strip him of that. Come on now. It just looks silly. It looks ridiculous. They're devaluing our whole system, and frankly, I'm pretty upset about it. But look, that's one thing. Woodley versus Till is a great fight. Interesting because Till missed weight by 4 pounds in his last fight against Wonderboy. Obviously, there's some issues with his wife, fiance, girlfriend that was having a child when he was cutting weight. So allegedly, that's why. But I digress. So that's a great fight. It's a great fight. I'm actually probably going to take Till in that fight early on. Before I do my homework too much, I'm probably going to take Till. But that's a great fight. But that title situation is something that, I just don't know how they fix it. It's crazy. But what do you do? It is what it is, in the words of Max Holloway. All right, let's see. Going through some of these other... Israel Adesanya called out by Derek Brunson for Madison Square Garden. I love that fight. That'd be great. Stipe calls for the rematch against DC. Makes sense. I don't know. Brock Lesnar has joined the USADA testing pool. We'll see how that... If he makes it all the way to that fight, Brock, I'm talking about, getting past those tests. When I say getting past, that's in quotation marks. I'm going to have a lot of questions about USADA and how they run business. Yeah, no, that Stipe rematch actually makes sense. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, yes, Nick Newell. So he fought on the Contender Series last night. And Tuesday night, so 2 nights ago. And so if you guys don't know, Nick Newell, he's 14-1, fought in various organizations. He's fought absolute studs. He has one arm. He's got like one arm, and the other arm kind of like cuts off at the forearm. And he has been a stud. His only loss comes from Justin Gaethje, who is now in the UFC and is one of the most violent men in the UFC. So he lost the fight, so it doesn't look like he'll be getting a contract. But I've spoke about it before with the Nick Newell situation. It's a big risk. It's a giant win or it's a giant loss if he were to fight in the UFC. If he fights and wins in the UFC, it's a great thing for PR for the UFC. Look, we put this one-arm guy in there, and he did great, and he won the fight. Right? That's what we all want to see. We always want to see a good Cinderella, good comeback story. But what if he loses? If he loses, the media is going to go crazy. The media that are not, it's not the MMA media. I'm talking about like mainstream, the Fox, the CNNs, NBC, that don't know anything about MMA. They're just going to write about how there's a one-arm guy in the UFC and how he got murked and beat up. It's a very slippery slope. So, I get it. Oh, Kendall Grove signed with Bare Knuckle Fighting. So, shout out to Dave Feldman, Concussion Discussion podcast alumni. Signing big names. Good for him. And I really think that's going to cover it. There's some of the Alexander Gustafsson versus Cormier drama. Cormier saying, hey, you're being whiny and entitled. I don't want to read the whole Instagram post. You guys can go look that up. You know how to read. But, so I think that covers all the MMA headline type stuff. some big fights coming up. Really excited for that Tail Woodley fight. Carla Esparza versus Tatiana Suarez. I'm excited for that. That's going to be a great one. So I guess now let's get into UFC on Fox 30, I think I saw. So I think I remembered that. UFC on Fox 30. This is not on Fox Sports 1. This is on Big Fox. So I want to start this out by saying, before I get into the fights, this is a very, very, very important fight for the UFC because UFC ratings have been down, like a lot down. And this fight card is so stacked. It doesn't have any. Eddie Alvarez is a big name. Joanna, fairly big name. Jose, although, his stocks kind of dropped lately. So, big name. That's to the purists like me. Not so much to the casual fans. So, very important for the UFC to see where this state of MMA is right now. Because they've been getting these low ratings, fairly low viewers. And, this is a stacked card, I think. So, this will be a really good indicator of where the UFC is at right now, especially on their, let's not even talk about their pay-per-view buys. But as far as viewers on free TV, this would be very important on the state of the UFC right now. So, I guess let's get into this thing. Here we go. UFC Fight Night. Calgary. Gosh, Calgary. I knew it was in Canada. I just couldn't remember. All right, so I'm just really going to talk about the main card. So Alexander Hernandez versus Olivier Aubin-Mercier, OAM, the Quebec kid. I call him. A lot of people call him the Canadian gangster. Oh man, this is a great fight. Alexander Hernandez is ranked number 13. OAM's ranked number 15. I'm not going to pick against Mercier, maybe until it gets to those top 5 guys. I think he's just an absolute savage. But Alexander Hernandez has beat some really great guys. So I'm going to take OAM Mercier via decision. I think he probably out-wrestles Hernandez. Then let's go on to Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Tisha the Tiny Tornado Torres. So Joanna has lost her last 2 against Rose, lost her title in the first round, then went to a decision in the rematch, lost that one against Rose. What bothers me about Joanna is Joanna will not own up to her losses. In the first loss when she got brutally knocked out, she said it was a terrible weight cut, so on and so forth. Okay, you lost the fight. Just admit you lost the fight and stop blaming it on stuff. Then they have the second fight, the immediate rematch. Goes to decision. I had Rose 3 rounds to 2. And Joanna says, oh no, I definitely won that fight. Well, no, you didn't. You definitely lost the fight because that's what the judges said. And you don't have a belt anymore, so you lost it. So that bothers me. She's always had a big ego, but yeah, it bums me out. I wish she would have fixed that after the first fight, definitely after the second fight, but it appears that she has not. But she's still ranked number 1 behind the champion, Rose Namajunas, in that strawweight division. Tisha Torres, coming off a loss to Jessica Andrade, no shame in that. Jessica Andrade is a tank. She's ranked number 5 in the world. So this is a great fight, man. This is a really great fight. I kind of went back and forth on trying to pick this one. I thought originally this is the hardest pick to make, but now that I analyze it, more, I think Joanna gets it done. I think Joanna gets it done in a decision. I think it'll be a close fight. I think Tisha Torres probably wins 1 round. I think Tisha might win the first round because Joanna in the past has been a slow starter. And this is a 3-round fight. This is the first 3-round fight for Joanna since 2015 because she's been in title fights ever since she was a champion and challenging for the championship for the last 3 years. So, very impressive stat there by Joanna, but, I think Joanna gets it done. She's a slow starter, but she's too smart not to come back and piece Tisha Torres up. Co-main event, Jose Aldo versus Jeremy Stephens. I'm telling you, when this fight was first announced, I said this isn't a good fight at all for Jose Aldo. I thought this was an easy one to judge. I thought Jeremy Stephens would knock him out maybe second round. But then I started to do my homework, watching some tape, really looking at who he's fought. So Jose Aldo, think about his losses. 2 from Max Holloway, 1 from Conor McGregor. Recent. So the Max Holloway losses, it's not that he got he got TKO'd both times, sure, but it wasn't a complete beatdown. He landed good shots against Max Holloway, and Max Holloway's just that damn tough. And then you have Jeremy Stephens, who's, he's on a tear right now, but, he fought Emmett, and Josh Emmett was a guy that just got propelled he was like unranked, and then went from unranked to number 4 in the world, which is crazy. I don't know how you jump him in the rankings that high so fast, but and then Jeremy Stephens goes in, knocks him out. And Jeremy Stephens is knocking a lot of people out recently. And I just thought that Stephens' power was an immediate indicator that he'd knock out Aldo. Aldo's coming off 2, back-to-back losses via KO. And then Jeremy Stephens would, he's coming off multiple KO wins. Seems like a no-brainer. And then I remembered the Jose Aldo where he fought Frankie Edgar not that long ago, UFC 200. And his footwork and his counterpunching. And then I thought of Jeremy Stephens and how crazy and wild he is. I would like Jeremy Stephens in this more if it was a 5-round fight to where he had more time to connect with a big punch against Aldo. But in a 3-round fight that, it's 10 minutes less of a fight, and Jose Aldo doesn't have to worry about that so much and can slowly pick him apart and can eat at that leg like he does so well that he has in the past. All of that said, I think Stephens is the underdog, and I like to give one underdog pick. I'm going to take Stephens 2nd round KO. Sure. Wouldn't be surprised if Jose Aldo wins it by decision, but, I think he'll catch him. I think Jeremy Stephens will catch him. But this is a very important fight to see if Jeremy Stephens has just been fighting over-ranked bums or, Aldo is just past his prime. So, interesting there. Then, main event, Dustin Poirier, number 4 lightweight in the world versus Eddie Alvarez, number 3 in the world at lightweight. So, their first fight, it was a weird ending. Dustin Poirier was putting it on him. Dustin Poirier, if you haven't watched that guy, man, you have to. Go back and watch his Justin Gaethje fight was good. All of his fights are really good. And I believe he's only had 1 loss at lightweight. And that was just he got clipped by Michael Johnson. But, he's a stud, man. Very technical. As long as he doesn't get into a brawl with Eddie Alvarez, I think he'll be just fine. I love Eddie. I love both guys, man. I've got to meet Eddie. I've got to meet Dustin. Both seem like really nice guys. But I'll take Dustin Poirier. It's 5 rounds. I'll take Dustin Poirier via late 4th, early 5th round TKO. Eddie just takes damage, and I think Dustin knows to just stay out of that brawl range with Eddie. Pick him apart. Rely on short, crisp punches. I think Dustin the Diamond Poirier gets it done. So that covers UFC on Fox 30. Remember, on Big Fox, not FS1. That covers that. And I think that covers this episode, ladies and gentlemen. So again, thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoy it, and I appreciate it. I know I got to get back on the wagon, start doing these podcasts more often. There just hasn't been that many good fights, really, that many good cards. So I hope the card lives up to the hype, and thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you to Fightbook MMA for the opportunity that you guys give me and always sharing my stuff and being so supportive. Again, shout out to Top Rated MMA and Eric Allen. Eric's doing some great stuff over there, and he's always sharing my stuff. And go check out his store, man, topratedmma.com. A lot of cool stuff. So that's it, guys. Thank you, and y'all be good to each other. Take care.